What is up, guys? So today we're going to do a quick little tutorial on how to make a menu screen for your game, right? We won't focus on the settings, the actual settings. We're just going to focus on the navigation of the menus. All right, so let's jump into this tutorial real quick. All right, so here we are in a new base plate. So let's start off with a screen GUI. We're going to call this, we're going to just call this our menu UI. Within here, we're going to add 2 frames. All right, cool. So let's make this a little transparent so we know what we're working with. So first thing first, for both of these, we have to add a UI scale elements, right? This right here is what controls how big your UI is, right? And that's what we're going to use to change the size, right? So cool, we have UI scale for both. For my menu, I want to anchor it in a certain position, right? We're going to add 0.5 and then we're going to put it back in the middle. So 0.5, 0.5 for the first one right here, anchor point 0.5, position 0.5, 0, 0, 0, right? So when we go here, it shrinks from up there. If you guys want it to shrink from the middle, let's say, all right, let's set this back to 1. Let's say UI settings, right? Let's set this to 0.5 both, 0.5, 0.5, and set this to 0.5, 0.5. So now the point is right here in the middle. So when we scale it, it'll shrink from there, right? So it really depends like what type of look you guys want this, right? So for our settings frame, we'll make it 0 for now. So let's go into our main menu. So I'm gonna add another frame. And this is just really all for aesthetics. You guys don't really need to add this, right? Just 0.5, 0.5. We'll make this a 0.5, actually 7.5. And then we'll make this a 3. Cool. And once again, this is really all just for aesthetics. So I'm gonna quickly just speed over this because this is really just for looks. It's not necessary. All right, so we quickly just designed our menu UI right here. Cool. Right, so in this middle frame, we could give it a special name if we really wanted to. Once again, this is just really for organizing. Cool, let's call this our middle frame. And within our middle frame, this is where we're going to insert our buttons, right? We're gonna have 2 buttons. We're gonna call this our play button. And then we're going to use this as our settings button. Cool. So I'm just speeding this all up because there's no need for y'all to see how to make buttons. Just make a button, make 2 buttons, and that's all you need. So now let's make the actual sizing stuff happen, right? We have to add a local script because we're working with UI. We'll call this our menu controller, our menu UI controller. Cool. So our local menu UI equals script parent. Then we're gonna have our local main. We're gonna identify all our frames equals main UI main menu. Our local settings. Let's call it settings frame equals menu UI. Cool. So we have both identified. So now let's identify the middle frame. I'm gonna actually call this menu middle frame equals menu middle frame. Cool. And then local menu buttons equals. Cool. So we're gonna make a table for menu buttons, and I'll show y'all why. I mean, y'all don't have to because there's only 2 buttons, so we'll keep this simple. We'll call this the play button equals menu middle frame play button. And then we're gonna do a local settings button because our menu settings button. Cool. So we have both buttons identified. So right now let's do a local tween service, which equals game get service tween service, right? This here is what allows us to size our elements, right? So tween frame, like it's the AI basically already knows what we want to do, but so we're going to call it a tween frame, and these are going to be the three variables we need. We need what we're sizing, right? So it's going to be our frame, whatever we decide to put in. We want to say the speed, like how quick it'll happen, and the size, right? You could add more elements if you wanted to, but those are like the three main core ones, right? Cool. So now we're gonna create a tween function, right? Right. So we're gonna use the tween service create. So we are gonna put frame here because that is what we're changing, but UI scale, right? Which is why I told y'all early on to add the UI scale to this, right? Because that is important. Then we're gonna do a tween info new. So this is basically the style of how it changes, right? We're not gonna get too deep into this because it's important, but not that important, right? So we gotta identify the speed, how fast we want to do this, right? Enum style, easing style. Let's do linear, right? All this, you guys really want to look it up. You kind of could use like a visual graph table, right? So let's do a little bounce. We'll do a bounce. Actually, no, that looks bad. We'll do linear. Okay, we'll stick to the easy and easing, and then easing direction. This is basically, should the style be applied when we start or when we are about to end, right? Usually in and out. Cool. And then cool. So that right there is our style of how we are sizing this, right? We have the speed, the easing style, and the easing direction. Now we need to identify, well, what exactly are we trying to change, right? Cool. So we make these little brackets here. What goes in here is, let's go to our UI scale right here, right? Within our UI scale, we see over here in behavior that has an element called scale, right? And scale, that's the one we want to change. So we're going to put here scale, right? Because we're using the UI scale right here, right? So we're saying, hey, take this. And then from this, we're going to take this and change it, right? And we're going to change this to the size. Cool. And that right there does it. Okay, actually, no, it doesn't. Then we have to do tween play. Cool. This right here plays the animation. Cool. So now let's do a animation where, let's say the player doesn't click on it, but they enter it, and then we want to do a little thing where it sizes up, right? So we're going to do tween frame. We're going to send over a play button, right? So that's going to be our frame. The speed, yeah, we'll do 0.1, and then the scale will do 1.1. One thing I did forget to include was to make sure your buttons also have a UI scale. This is optional. Like this here is really all optional. It's really all for the visuals, but it makes it look a little more professional, right? Cool. Play. Now we copy and pasted that, but now we're gonna do mouse leave, right? So okay, so this is where I messed up. Comma. We gotta do a comma right there. Cool. You see this? Boom, boom. Right. So that adds like a nice little effect, a nice little touch, right? So now we'll copy and paste that, and then we'll go into our settings button. Boom, boom. So same thing, except now we've got to make sure this passes, and then once again, let's go back in here and show you what this looks like. Cool. Right. Now let's actually make something happen, right? Like I want to click settings, and I want the settings menu to pop up. So let's do that, right? So let's say the settings button is clicked, right? let's say we click it. Cool. So now what we have to do is we have to shrink the menu. We gotta do tween frame. We're gonna do the main menu, and the scale, the speed of 0.1, whatever. But the scale is gonna be 0 because we want to shrink our menu, our main menu. And then we're gonna do another tween frame. This is gonna be for our settings frame. So let's also do it at 0.1 speed, and we're gonna make the scale 1. Currently, the UI scale is set to 0, right? But once it goes to 1, it grows, which is what we want. So let's quickly show y'all what that looks like. Boom, we hover, boom. And just like that, it opened up, right? But obviously, how do we get back to the main menu, right? So let's go back here and let's add a button, right? Let's shrink this down to 0 and then paste this button right here. Okay, what the? Oh, yeah. Obviously, make sure our UI scale for settings is back to 1. Then, cool. So let's take this button. The anchor points, let's make it 0, 1. Cool. So the anchor point is down here in this corner. So now we could set the position to 0, 0, 1, 0. All right, let's call this back. Cool. That's our back button. Back button. Right. And once again, this code is not the cleanest because ideally you want to have this organized a little better, but like it does the job done, and this is really just more to expose y'all to what the code is supposed to look like, right? So let's call this our back settings button, like just in case we add more frames and we don't want to like mess up, right? Cool. Settings frame, back button. Cool. So now basically all we did here, copy and paste that. And then instead of the settings button, we're doing the back settings button, right? So instead of this settings button, we're doing back, right? Boom. Cool. Cool. So this here handles the sizing of the button. And now here's the function, right? Right. Since we're going back, now we want our main menu back to 0. Back to 1. And we want our settings back to 0. Right. So let's start off fresh, make our settings UI scale 0 and main menu 1. Let's quickly play. Cool. Our buttons do our little thing. Click settings. Cool. Settings is open. Okay. I want to go back. Boom. And just like that, we have the menu done. And if you guys really enjoyed this tutorial, it's my first time ever making a tutorial, so I tried my best to explain it as best as I could. I'd argue this is a pretty simple tutorial, and it really makes your games look a little more professional, having a nice menu screen instead of just like static buttons that you just click without any pizzazz, right? So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys comment down below and let me know if you guys need another tutorial for other stuff, right? Pretty decent at coding, so I can show y'all how to do other stuff. I can show you how to make this bridge on Blender. Pretty simple. All right, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate you guys watching. 3 of you guys made it all the way. And if you guys have any suggestions on how I can make these tutorials better, leave them down below in the comments, and thank y'all for watching.